forget why you have to act a certain way in front of people, and you just kind of do it, and then it all becomes a lot more relaxed.
Definitely, yeah. So it is that the loosening of the boundaries and just sitting back and relaxing, and just the joy that comes from that shared experience. Definitely. Although I will, think about my kids take pleasure in food. I'm just thinking that we were at a restaurant recently. My daughter, who definitely knows better, was enjoying her curry so much that she picked up her plate, and I don't know if she was joking, but it looked like she was about to lick the plate in the restaurant. God. So I think we'll keep a few boundaries up, and a little decorum. We'll hang on to a little bit of decorum.
My vision was more around a home table than a restaurant table.
Yeah. That's just what came to mind.
So were you about to like close your eyes or have a heart attack, or what did you do in that situation?
I think I gave her one of those looks.
One of those mum looks.
She put the plate down.
Yeah, and quickly.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting how we've mentioned a few times the way that different cultures have different foods and the way that they eat, and how we're in such a multicultural city of Melbourne and get to experience the privilege of experiencing so many different cultures and so many different foods. And I'm just wondering whether you think, and you mentioned it earlier when you said break bread together, but whether you think that food and the culture that's connected with that particular food, whether that helps the kind of divide between different cultures on a personal level as well. Like if I eat a certain food's cuisine and I love it, do I then maybe feel a little bit different about that culture?
Oh, I think so. I think definitely. I think even, this is more at the fast food end of things, but there's this halal snack pack, which is, at 4 a.m. if you're spilling out of a nightclub, have to say I'm not doing this, but
no,
but a lot of the trucks or the late night stores will be selling these HSPs, so halal snack pack. So it's basically loaded fries, so chips loaded with meat and sauce, and it's just gooey. It's, going down your elbow, but it's great if you've been living large and need some ballast. But I think this whole concept of, the halal food, the Muslim food, I think it's even something as simple as that. It's like it's halal. It's it's a food that comes out of the Islamic culture, which is a culture that there's so much suspicion of at the moment. And I think even something like that is good. It's a bit of a connection. It's a bit of breaking down of barriers. So yeah, definitely. I think food is a fantastic bridge. You look in the Middle East and everyone's eating hummus, and I think that's. It's a troubled part of the world in, many areas, but there's definitely connections made through food, sometimes just by the by, but sometimes quite consciously, where there are people that will specifically, meet and eat together and try to build those bridges.
Yeah. And it's, it's amazing because it just shows how, if we came back to the beginning of this conversation, how there's so much more in the nurture conversation of food than necessarily in the nourish conversation, yet there is so much talk about the nourish side, and it just seems not as much talk about the nurture side. So it's so good having this conversation today and really bringing up some of these things which everybody does know, but I think that people have forgotten about some of these important areas of food and connection, and how, and all these positive ripple effects of food and the way that we eat and the choices that we can make through food.
Yeah, that's right. Just another organisation that I think is so amazing in this space is the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre Catering Company. So it's asylum seekers that are living in the community that run a catering company that for a very reasonable price will cater your function, and they're cooking food from various cultures, whether it's Iranian or Hazari or whatever it is, like different people living in our community, and that is amazing because they're cooking the food. The food's delicious. It's and it's feeds your party, but also it connects you and your guests with a different culture.
Oh, that sounds awesome. I've actually never heard of that. Maybe I'll get the details from you for that after the show, and I'll put them in the show notes, because that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's just like, looking at the well-being of in so many different areas. So, all the food that you're helping people that are in need. When they're making it, they're connecting. Catering companies and cooks, they're all connecting and having these experiences just by cooking together. Because I think that we haven't really talked much about that, but that idea of cooking together brings people together as well. And there's lots of levels of that one, and definitely interested in getting more details about that to share with the listeners, because that sounds awesome.
Right.
But maybe we should talk just for a minute just about that idea of cooking together, because I remember so many of the memories I have with my grandmother are around cooking, and whether it be making the biscuits together, or cooking meals for, bigger extended family gatherings. But so much of it is around food, and it really helps with that generational bond between, grandmothers and granddaughters, or grandsons, or, all the different generations. And I think that in some ways, I do involve my children a little bit in the cooking, but we're so rushed, and I think that often, even when there's a family occasion, we might get asked to bring a salad, or and you're doing it in your own kitchens rather than all coming together and preparing the food together. So what do you?
I think you're right. Like, I'm the same. A lot of the memories I've got of my grandparents are of those cooking together, and making the scones and the biscuits, and even with my mom, dipping the schnitzels in the egg and the breadcrumbs. I did that. And I suppose it is about the connection. You're learning how to cook, which is an amazing skill to pass down, and you've got that satisfaction of helping to feed people, which is so powerful. I don't know. I think you're right. Like, it's something that's tricky, and you do hear those things like get your children involved in chopping the vegetables or stirring the pot or whatever it is. I have varying levels of success with that, where they would often just rather not help me and do something else, possibly on a screen, than come and fulfill that beautiful vision of the family cooking together. One way that I reckon we do make that happen is when we go camping. So every January we go away camping for a couple of weeks, and it's a big group of us, a few different families, and there are no distractions, and we do cook together. We also instill kids cooking nights, where the kids put together a simple meal, burritos or sushi or whatever it might be. So I think it is possibly about creating, really consciously creating those opportunities where it has to happen. I suppose, I don't know, like whether it's doing something that is quite fun and quite spectacular and satisfying, like whether it's making pasta together or doing a pavlova, something where there's a real wow factor at the end of it, and you're passing down some skills, or perhaps learning together, and equipping the youngsters with skills to take forward and something yummy to eat. Another thing that I'm also part of a recipe club, and this is a fun thing that people might want to do for themselves, where every couple of months it's a bunch of girls and we meet up and we cook to a theme. So we've done, let's say Indian, or we might just do summer brunch. And so you cook to a theme. Everyone sort of brings a dish or finishes their dish off at the person's house, so we swap houses. So there is a little bit of engaging with the things that other people are making there, and perhaps finishing dishes off together. So that's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love both the idea of the recipe club, and I also love the idea of the kids cooking night in camping. And I think that that's, I suppose, when we've kind of talked about the balance of life, and we are living in a more modern society, so we've got to be real about our situation, and we aren't living like maybe we did when we were kids and our grandmothers were cooking all day. So, it is a different thing, and we do have to be realistic. So maybe it is about not trying to involve them in the cooking, all the time, but at least picking one occasion or a couple occasions a year and finding a fun way where that can be incorporated so that they at least have, I suppose, some memories and experiences where cooking and food becomes really joyful, and it's actually it's a part of play.
Yeah, look, I think it's about the joy, but it's also about the skills. Like you're really setting someone up for a better, healthier, cheaper life if they got a few dishes under their belt. So I think especially when kids get to those teen years, they're totally capable of cooking, and it just might be. You're doing them a favour by giving them, letting them leave home with 6 or 10 dishes that they really have got locked in solid. They know how to cook, and they know how to vary them with seasonal produce or whatever it is. I think because of the way society's gone and convenience foods, quote unquote, and takeaway have really come into so many people's lives. I think there has been a little bit of a generational schism, where a lot of those skills have been lost, and perhaps our grandmothers didn't pass down to our mothers, or whichever generation it was. There wasn't that person that was just there cooking, that you just sort of gleaned a whole lot of information, and it's really, those skills only take one generation to disappear. Yeah. So in some cases, it's really about us consciously rebuilding that skill level and that knowledge bank, and sending the next generation forth with a little bit of inspiration and just basic knowledge, so that the kitchen isn't a foreign place. It's somewhere that they feel comfortable, even if it's just to, whip up an omelette with a little bit of cheese and a few herbs. Like that's a good dinner, and that's not that hard. But it does take a little bit of practice. So I suppose it's also allowing that space for failure and for kitchen mess. I think sometimes it just seems like too much hassle to let the kids do something because you're going to have such a big clean-up, and I feel that as much as anybody else. But it's worth it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I completely hear you on that one. The kitchen does end up in a mess, and even when they enjoy the cooking part, they don't really enjoy the cleaning up part, and it'll either end up in a really big argument for them to clean up, or I'll just end up cleaning up.
I'm a bit of a fascist about the cleaning up, that, don't start doing unless you're going to clean it up. Having said that, their version of a clean up might not be my version of a clean up. And so I think, I'll definitely sweep in behind and finish up, just because I think it's so important that they are in that space doing stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, the more like you said, that they can be involved in it, the more skills that they have, the more that they even appreciate what you do when you prepare the meals. And then, some gratitude comes in when they're sitting down to a meal that you might have prepared, and then the love of food then comes more because there's sort of some gratitude within it of understanding the time and care it's taken to prepare the meal. And I think that the flow-on effect and the ripple effect of all of that then becomes more positive around the whole food experience, because they've been involved in it from the beginning till the cleanup of, dinner's over. And I think that, all of those experiences all the way through really affect the way that we experience food, and the importance level of food, and what it brings to us, both on obviously a nourish and a nurture level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the ideal scenario. I find, sometimes my kids I think perhaps perhaps also because I'm a restaurant critic and also because I'm recipe testing all the time. So sometimes they do feel that it's their important role to be quite critical, and that can be quite annoying at times. But yeah, it's them's the breaks, I guess.